Hey guys, this is Josh with the Podcast for All Seasons. As with me always is my co-host Eric Joseph. Today we've got a special guest from the CultureJunkies.net site, our friend Chris, aka GQ. We are going to be doing the final episode of season 3, our tentative season 3. We just didn't get a chance to squeeze it in at the end of the year, so we're just going to wrap it up. And for today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit of roundup. So I'm going to hand it over to Eric, and he's going to get us introduced as to what we're going to be talking about, and then get our guest introduced as well. So what's going on, Eric?
Hi, Josh. It's been a couple months since we've done an episode. December was a bit of a busy time for both of us. I pretty much had commitments or was going out every weekend, and then this year it's been off to a bang. Still doing the podcast here at DKN and DCN, but I do want to say that um, a lot of you who listen to the show know that I've been working over at WeGotThisCovered.com for about a little over a year now, and I was recently promoted to comic book managing editor. So I just wanted, we normally plug links at the end of the show, but I just wanted to say quickly that we've started up a new endeavor over there. We are now covering comic books themselves. You know, we've done the movie, TV, Blu-ray thing forever, but yeah, we're doing comic book news and reviews. So please head over to We Got This Covered to check us out. We've built a strong team over there, and I'm posting a lot of news every day, and I'm pretty proud of what we're doing. But moving on to the show at hand, today we are going to each give our top 3 picks in 2 categories. First, we will be covering our favorite comic book movies of 2016. There was a bit to choose from. Overall, while this begins the trend of more comic book movies per year, it wasn't per se the best year for comic book movies. We had some good ones, some so-so ones, some not so good ones, depending on who you ask. And then we're going to list our top 3 picks for 2017 that we're anticipating most. And hopefully 2017 begins to turn things around because, in years past, like we'll cite 2008, that was a real quality over quantity year. I mean, we had Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk, The Dark Knight. Just, I don't care what anyone says about The Incredible Hulk. That was a solid year for superhero films. But anyway, before we start, officially getting into things, let me formally introduce our guest for today. And I say formally quite appropriately because he's quite possibly the most sharply dressed man I know. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show the brutally honest Chris, aka GQ.
Eric, I can't thank you enough for that very awesome intro. I also want to say, hey, what's up to Josh? I want to thank both of you guys for having me on the show. It's definitely an honor and a pleasure to be on your show, Podcast for All Seasons. As you know, we've had you guys both on Culture Junkies Live, so it's definitely, a great honor for both of you to invite me onto your show. So I'm looking forward to today's show because, comic book movies are definitely something I love to talk about.
Well, Chris, why don't you get into it? I think that we like to tend to let the guests speak first. So why don't we jump into it? What were your favorite movies, comic book movies, that is, of 2016? What were some of the weaknesses? I think we got plenty enough time to talk about that as well. And then we'll kind of pass it around. And then at the end, we'll kind of all wrap up what we're looking forward to in the coming years. So what did you think about 2016's comic book movies?
2016 was a pretty strong year as far as diversity of comic book movies. I mean, you got everything running the gamut from a hard R Deadpool all the way to a introductory, for a lot of people, introductory film for Doctor Strange. So, I mean, it's like you had, and it was spread throughout the entire year. It wasn't just summer heavy like Eric had mentioned, 2008. All 3 of those movies came out in the summer. This was Deadpool in February. Batman versus Superman, I think a month later in March, and then like this, obviously your summer popcorn films, and then even stretching all the way into November, you got Doctor Strange. So I mean, it's like it was cool to see that it was stretched out. It was kind of painful sometimes to wait in between films when it was like, okay, all the films we're going to go see them, and the next it's like, nope, your next film's coming out in August or it's coming out in November. It's like, oh, I was kind of enjoying the every single week there's something to go see type of thing. But I think this year, my stronger films, Deadpool obviously was a kind of a runaway hit in the sense of financially, it was like, look, they didn't give him a lot of money to make it. As was seen, there's a couple of sequences got cut because of budgetary reasons, but they threw in a funny story point to make, light of that. But just the amount of money they made on it's like, look, if you guys really take the source material seriously, treat it with respect, and actually just do it, you get a good return on your investment. So I mean, I think Fox is seeing that, and hopefully with some of their future films, they'll look to that example of like, hey, if we do this right, the fans are gonna like it. Even the casual people that aren't too much into it, if they like a particular actor or if they hear enough good reports or good reviews about the films, then they'll go check them out. I did like, now as much as I talked about it, I did actually like Batman v Superman. There was just things about it that stood out that kind of hurt the film for me, but overall it was like, look, it's still the two most iconic comic book characters out there, period. Everybody knows who Batman is. If you don't know who Batman is, that means you've never looked at TV or anything in your entire lifetime that you've been alive. Every baby is born imprinted with Superman's origin story in their brain before they even come out of the womb. So it's like, these two characters, and to see them on screen for the first time is amazing. It was awesome. There were some missteps here and there, but overall the film was very, very cool to sit through. I mean, and the Ultimate Edition tied up a lot of loose ends, so I mean, I did enjoy it. I would look at Civil War as a very good film in the sense of, I look at okay, the Russo brothers are the guys that are handling Infinity War, which obviously is coming up 2 years from now, or is it next year? I think it's next year. I'm sorry, it's coming up next year. The main worry that I had for Infinity War was, okay, you're probably going to have a roster of 40 some odd characters, actors, very famous people that all need their screen time. And my worry was, okay, we're going to have, let's say, for example, Black Panther might show up for like all of 5 minutes, and then the rest of the movie, he's not even there until maybe the end. So it's like, how are you going to juggle all of these characters? And seeing how they did it in Civil War was like, okay, yes, a lot of them already had origin stories, movies, whatever, appearances, and that sort of thing. But if you really look at it, he was able to introduce, they were able to introduce Black Panther, Spider-Man, basically tell not the best origin for Baron Zemo, a good enough origin for Baron Zemo to give you at least some idea of why he was there and what he was, all about. And, that airport scene, it was like, yes, there was a lot going on. Yes, you needed multiple watchings or multiple viewings to see exactly what was going on, but it never felt to the point of like, okay, there's too much going on. Let me just sit back and just not even pay attention. So that gives me hope for them to be able to handle Infinity War, because it's going to be on a much larger scale. So, I mean, it's, I thought that was pretty cool. X-Men Apocalypse had its shortcomings. I liked it for certain elements of it. Certain parts of it were very cool. But the problem is, and I just actually recently rewatched rather, First Class and Days of Future Past, Magneto felt almost the exact same. And it was not so much that I have a problem with Magneto being like, the bad guy, because that's, what he is. But it seemed like in every single film, it was Magneto's story arc was the exact same thing. Either it was he went from bad to good or good to bad, and that was it. It was like no actual development of that character. And Magneto, for me, has always been one of those extremely deep comic book characters that there's so many different ways you can explore his character. And they just kind of went the easy route with that film. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys, because I feel like I've talked a lot. Just for this.
So in your top three, in your top three, if you had to give them a ranking, you don't have to necessarily give it a particular order. What would you say is the max out top three? You said I know you said Deadpool. I know you said Captain America 3, Civil War, and then I know that you had Deadpool in there as well.
Yeah,
Or Batman vs Superman.
Yeah,
rather.
Batman v Superman is definitely in there. It's honestly it's above Deadpool only in the sense of Deadpool was good. Don't get me wrong, great movie, enjoyed it. You know, always liked the character, but there's only so much you can do with that, and I think that's the wall that they've hit, and they might hit that wall really hard in part two because it's like, okay, you've got past that shock factor that the general audience is going to see. For all of us comic book fans, we know what Deadpool is like. We know exactly why he does what he does with the fourth wall breaking and all that. And it's like, it's not as if the fourth wall break is something brand new to cinema. It has been done in the past. I'm glad that they decided to take their what do you call it, their after credit scene from Ferris Bueller, because again, Ferris Bueller was one of the first major films to do the fourth wall break. So it was very cool for them to have that nod, if you will, to the original, not the originator, but one of the original films to do the fourth wall break. Um, I would definitely probably rank, yeah, Deadpool is in there, Batman v Superman is in there, and Civil War is in there. The other films that came out later, Doctor Strange was just an origin story. I mean, for me, I was never a fan of Doctor Strange in the comics. I knew of the character. I mean, again, if you're a comic book reader, you've seen these people before. But just like Thor, Thor was never one of my favorite characters, but the movie helped, like, oh, okay, there's a little bit more interesting stuff there that I didn't maybe pay attention to. Doctor Strange did the same, but that's not enough to push it in my top three, though. Suicide Squad was an amazing film. Um, it actually made Will Smith play a character more so than actually being Will Smith, playing Will Smith as a character. So I was actually very happy about that, very pleased with that. I just think it ran into Ghostbusters territory near the end, and I kind of wish that they would have made it a little bit more espionage-y, gritty, versus you guys are fighting supernatural.
I love it.
But
Ghostbusters territory.
Hey, I'm sorry. As soon as they started doing the CGI for her, I was like, dude, this is Zool 2.0. What the heck?
Yeah, that got really, really wonky. All right,
Yeah.
so I'll jump in here. So, yeah, I was looking at I was actually looking at Box Office Mojo when you had mentioned Deadpool's runaway success. I was going to just jump in. I mean, this is a movie that had a production budget of 58 million and it made 783 million worldwide. It was just an absolute box office smash. I mean, in terms of just the profit margins for the studio alone, they're just printing money with that movie. But yeah, is it going to be the same narrative success or franchise success as the rest of these movies? I knew a lot of people our age and more specifically younger, people in their early 20s, mid 20s, and then even teenagers who know Deadpool, who were super excited. They wanted to see the movie. They thought it was funny. It's a lot of what you classically call dick and fart jokes, and that's what Deadpool's known for. I don't know about the longevity of it. And every adult that I talk to, people I know who really like to go and see movies. My wife's cousin, for example, is an avid moviegoer. We constantly are, chatting about movies that we are going to see and have seen. And it was like he's the average moviegoer. Although he's taking in content a lot more than the average moviegoer. He is the average moviegoer. He's not a hardcore critic, but he's not beholden to any specific genre. And he was like, yeah, Deadpool, yeah, it was funny. I don't know, it was a little too brash for my tastes. And those are those are just the fundamental average tastes of Joe Q public. So I do question the staying power. It's a really good point to make. And going forward, there are things like Jessica Jones, for example, on Netflix. I loved the show. I loved the first season. I thought it was really tight. It's maybe one of my favorites of the Netflix shows, because it nailed the genre that it was going for, which is like, neo-noir, gritty detective stuff. And I just question how much can that thematically work in another season now that you no longer have the Purple Man.
Yeah, and I'm not to cut you off. I agree with you 100% on that. It's like sometimes you get over that first hump of like, boom, here it is. You've never seen this before, or at least you haven't seen this particular character, done properly or done right. And then next thing you know, it's like, okay, well, what do you go from here? Because you know full well the studio greenlit Deadpool 2 the second they saw it, tick over the 200 million mark probably. And then once it got up to the 750, 780 mark, they're like, oh yeah, we might even go to a third.
Right.
The problem is, what do you do next? Because you've already got that first group of people that are like, dude, look at this character. He's doing stuff that I haven't seen before. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Now what do you do to to continue that for the next group of people that maybe skipped it the first time? Because again, Deadpool thankfully had an R rating in your face, let you know, do not bring your kids to this film. When a group of us went to go see Sausage Party, another movie that had a definite R rating, there were still kids in the theater, and it's just like, parents, do you not know what the letter R stands for?
Because it's animated, it's for children, right?
Yeah,
right.
One would think, but oh my goodness, it was, it's just one of those things. And again, I'm not a parent, but it's still, I understand how parenting is supposed to work, and that's not exactly how parenting should work.
Yeah, I mean, it really cracks me up because I know that when I went and saw Deadpool, there was like, there was probably like a 10-year-old, about 3 chairs down from me, and it's like he's just dropping F-bomb after F-bomb, and I'm laughing not only because it's funny, but I'm laughing because I'm looking over at this adult who has their child here, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be just absolutely deliciously hilarious in terms of this parent reacting to like, hey mom, let's go see Deadpool. Oh, he's a comic book character. Oh, and they think they know what a comic book character means.
And you get the strap-on scene.
Oh wow.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, like within the first 20 minutes, you're getting like a sex montage of like, this represents an entire year of their relationship. And it's like, but I like the fact that he outright tells you at the beginning of the film, it's like, wait a minute. I thought this was like a comic book movie. He just skewered that dude. It's just like, it lets you know, it's like, hey, and the worst part is, and I'm sure Josh is sitting there thinking the same thing when he's looking over at the kid, like, yeah, the character just told you outright, you spent money on the wrong movie to bring your kid to.
Right.
So I mean, I love it. And I think, if they can, I think the success for Deadpool 2 is obviously going to rely on more characters, bigger budget, better action sequences. And again, not saying that the action sequences in this one weren't good, because again, I can't take 58 million and probably do that, because that was amazing, the stuff that they did. But I think they're going to have to capitalize on a little bit more fourth wall, direct a couple more things to the audience, and Cable's going to have to knock it out of the park. If that's going to be one of their linchpins, he's going to have to be amazing.
Yeah, it also looks like in addition to bringing in Cable, they're going to start to really plant seeds for the X-Force movie, because that's some news that got out this week is, well, we know that X-Force is coming at some point, and that I don't know if it's quite clear if X-Force is going to be its own thing. It's also been said Deadpool 3 might be the X-Force movie, but it's just kind of, Deadpool and the X-Force. I could see that happening, but it looks like we're going to really start to get, those wheels turning in the second movie.
That would be, hold on, X-Force is where he has that gray and red costume, right?
Yeah. Gray and black.
Oh, gray and black, but with red eyes or something. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. That would be interesting to see, especially if they decide to go that route on screen. Make it a little bit grittier. I mean, it's already gritty, but make it a little bit grittier, harder. I don't know, even harder R. I don't think you can go much further without hitting NC-17. But
right, it would would follow up the classic comic book movie thing of changing up a costume from movie to movie.
Oh yeah, I think it would work. I mean, as long as the studio doesn't get ridiculously greedy and try to act like, oh well, we can change this and this. It's like, no, give them the money, let them do what they do.
Right. All right, so back on task. Best movies of 2016, in my humble opinion. So we've chatted a little bit about Deadpool, and Deadpool actually isn't going to make my top 3. It probably is tied for maybe 3.5, but in no particular order. Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice, specifically the Ultimate Cut. So I mean, granted, it wasn't the theatrical release, but I feel like all of the narrative issues that Chris has talked about, that me and Eric have talked about on the show prior to that we've mentioned in, if you guys have ever caught our Culture Junkies roundups where we've talked about various things like that. There's been plenty of arguments over on that show about the movie. The Ultimate Cut fixed so many of the narrative issues. It didn't fix some of the tonality issues, which if you don't care for the tone of the movie, that's something that's not going to be, fixable for you. But I thought that, it's Batman and it's Superman meeting for the first time. I didn't particularly love the outcome of the fight, not necessarily because of the erroneous Martha issue so much, but definitely because I would have liked to have seen. I believe the issue was a Justice League comic book that I'm referencing, but there was this great issue where Superman got taken over by Joker Venom, as well as the rest of the Justice League, and Batman gets his Justice Buster suit. It's basically just a gigantic
Endgame.
Oh, it wasn't Batman Endgame? Okay, I couldn't remember if it was Batman Endgame or Justice League. So yeah, Batman Endgame. It was Capullo's art, so I should have known.
The Joker wore the very suit I'm wearing in my pic right there.
Right. So he gets the Justice Buster suit, which is basically like the Hulk Buster Iron Man costume. And he does. He takes out most of the Justice League. I actually thought that the way that he took out the Flash was maybe the most clever, because it was actually funny to me that he was the most afraid of the Flash. He was actually more afraid of the Flash than he was Superman, because he didn't know. He knew that what he was going to do against Superman would potentially work. He knew what he was going to do against Aquaman was going to potentially work. He didn't know that what he was going to do against the Flash was going to work, which is basically made a supercomputer that was going to potentially see movement in the distance, shoot down some frictionless surface and potentially take him out. And it was well done. But when he fought Superman, Superman just rips that suit into pieces. He rips it right in half, and they fight in the sky, and he takes him up into the air, and because of course you're going to take a human, you're going to fly him into space or whatever, and when they fight, the Batman dialogue goes something along the lines of who fights or who wins in a fight between Batman and Superman. And it's like the answer is always the same: neither of us. And I would have liked a more ambiguous, definitive answer to the Batman versus Superman fight. I get that they narratively did it the way that they did it because they wanted to have that catalyst of Batman finally coming to the realization that he was kind of the villain or a villain of the film when it came to Superman. From the perspective of Superman, he kind of realizes that he's not being the good guy that he's supposed to be. People didn't like the Martha scene being the catalyst for that. I actually think that it was very narratively honest, and they could have done it a different way. But there was a lot of things to like about that movie. The Batman warehouse scene was great. I really like to see the classic Superman montages. Him pulling the gigantic freighter ship by the chain through the ice. I mean, that is straight out of some like Darwin Cook art, out of Justice League Frontier. It was just classic Superman stuff. Him catching the missile or catching the space pod, him saving the fiery building. It was just classic, iconic Superman scenes. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more legitimate action from him, but I thought that what they did was great. My next one would be Captain America: Civil War. I love Captain America. He's my favorite Marvel superhero. Maybe my absolutely favorite Marvel superhero. He's one of my favorite superheroes, period. He's probably number maybe 3 on the list of superheroes behind Superman and Batman. And I love what Marvel's done with him because they've made him the most forthright character. I like my heroes heroic. I like my heroes forthright. I like my heroes with a strong sense of justice. Captain America has it in spades. But we see the cracks in the veneer in this movie a lot. It's part of the catalyst for the narrative. The breakdown between Iron Man and Captain America, Bucky being the central conflict between the two, him and the rest of the Avengers, essentially, as well as some new members like Ant-Man and Spider-Man and things like that. We saw Spider-Man being brought into the fold of the Marvel Universe. Finally, that was a breath of fresh air for a lot of people, and they just did it. They did it very well. There were some things that I didn't like. So just like Batman versus Superman had some in the theatrical release as well, had some narrative issues that really kind of mucked up the storytelling and mucked up the flow of the film. I felt like the introduction of the Spider-Man character in the middle of the film, it felt like it was done during reshoots. It felt like it was edited poorly. It took me out of the movie narratively. Very, very. It was like a slap in the face in terms of like it was like, well, this is really uncharacteristic of the way that this movie was flowing. And I think that they could have been done better. Unfortunately, we didn't see any changes in the DVD release or anything like that. Marvel doesn't tend to do things like that. I don't think that's a good or a bad thing for either of the houses that are really making superhero movies right now. But I do think that that they could have maybe reshot those scenes or retold them in a slightly different way to make it an improvement to the movie. But again, Captain America being the good guy, being the forthright hero that he is, we started to see cracks in that, and that that he's human. That makes for a really great movie to me. And a lot of people didn't care for the very final scene where it kind of wraps up. Not to spoil it, but where you kind of get some of the tension of the movie wrapped up in a really neat resolution with just a letter at the end. A lot of people didn't care for that. I actually think that that's really honest for the character of Captain America, so I didn't mind it as much. And again, he was the most Captain America that we've seen him since at least the second movie, which was probably the best of the three, in my opinion. But last but not least, I'm actually going to tie Suicide Squad and Doctor Strange. So I finally got a chance to see Doctor Strange. I was very, very impressed with the visuals. I was very impressed with some of the character development. There wasn't enough, and as Chris had mentioned, it being an origin movie, I think that it kind of had all of the detriments of an origin movie, and that was to be expected. I actually thought that the movie Suicide Squad did a little bit of a better balance of some of the characterization. There was good things and bad things about that story. We've talked about them at length on this podcast before. Go back and check out our reviews of those movies, with the exception of Doctor Strange. We haven't done a Doctor Strange review yet, so maybe that's a tentative one that we will do. But I do think they were both really good movies. Doctor Strange, the character of him, I haven't been extraordinarily or intimately familiar with him. But I haven't been intimately familiar with all the characters from Suicide Squad. Eric was not a big fan of the character of the Joker in the Suicide Squad, as I'm sure he might mention, or at least he didn't care for Leto's portrayal. I actually disagree with that. Granted, I've only seen the movie once. I thought that it was maybe the most accurate to the comic book tone, if not obviously the visuals, but that absolute chaotic psycho activity of the Joker that we see in the comic books, where he's so unpredictable. You kind of don't know if he's going to kiss you or kill you. I thought that was actually portrayed very well. So that'll round it out. And
I have one thing to jump in on that, though.
Sure.
Because I understand what you mean about the Joker being unpredictable, and that's 100% accurate. I mean, that is one of the things that's always been loved about the character. You don't know what he's going to do next. The problem with Suicide Squad, and like I said, as you know, I have a ridiculous movie collection. So every single time a comic book movie comes out, I buy it. Whether I really loved it or really hated it, I just like having all the comic book films to sit back and watch and go over again or whatever. The problem with the Joker, and this is what I narratively did not like them doing, and from an editing standpoint too, every time he was about to switch on you, they had a visual cue on screen. They would distort his image a little bit or do something, and then it goes to, oh, okay, he's going to kill you. Like, for example, prime example, when he kills Common, the guy in the club, it's like you have this moment. It's like Joker brings Harley over to give this guy a lap dance, and it's like, okay, probably a horrible idea to accept this, but whatever, go ahead. And then you get into it and you're thinking like, okay, is Joker going to just chill and watch this and kill him later? Is he going to chill and watch this and like he's in the middle of it and beat him down with a baseball bat? You know, that's what I would have thought that they would have gone with. Then he's just sitting there. The next thing you know, you get this little visual switch and it's just like, oh, no, stop. And then he shoots him. I'm like, okay, you kind of knew it was coming, but you didn't have to give me like a clue to let me know it was about to happen at this moment. It should have just happened, you know, and I think that was one of the problems I had with it. And I don't know if Eric agrees with me on this, but just the look of the Joker, for whatever weird reason, he looked like just a biker gang punk that liked to slick his hair back and dye it green. Nothing wrong. I mean, again, they just went for a different look, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do think that the look was definitely, obviously, that was something that did not fit in the craws of so many people. I mean, looking like you said, like kind of like a mix between like a biker pimp and, you know, like a 1970s gauche pimp or something like that. Right. I mean, yeah, it was a really, really weird take on the Joker. I mean, I think some of the things make a form of narrative sense if we take a Joker in a gritty, realistic world, and it's like, yeah, he probably would have a shit ton of prison tattoos. Since he's going with the whole Joker moniker, yes, probably several of them would be clowns related, or you know, he has visual cues to, you know, for example, keen-eyed people have seen he has a Robin tattoo. Right. Keen-eyed visuals have seen other little cues to the things that the Joker has done in the past. The ha ha ha. I actually thought that the smile on the hand, I mean, that looked like a straight up like Lieber Mayho bloody smile from like a comic book cover. You know, him holding up the smile was kind of humorous.
No, that was cool. I mean, again, certain touches like that were cool, but there were other things like the grill really got on my nerves, because it's like, okay, Joker might be crazy, but dude, grills like went out like in the late 90s. I'm like, let's be real. But I mean, you know, and again, just from a fashion standpoint, whatever. But that just was odd to me. I mean, and again, maybe that was what it was. That's the thing that they were going for with Leto. It's like, look, this isn't your granddaddy's, daddy's, or even your Joker. This is a brand new Joker, a new take on the Joker, and you're just going to have to, you know, be uncomfortable with it. Maybe that's, you know, what they were going for. It's like, look, this isn't Joker that everybody's used to. And Ledger, you know, knocked it out of the park. Mark Hamill does to me, still one of the best voices for the Joker in history. But again, Leto's a different guy. He wanted to put his own take on it, and I can understand that just from you know, an actor putting their stamp on it. But just for me looking at it, it was like it was hard to accept him as the Joker, and maybe that's just, you know, me having too many other, you know, characterizations of the Joker that I've seen throughout, you know, all this time, you know. But I'll let Eric take it over because I know he had something.
It's just I felt Leto was really trying too hard. I mean, there's method, and then there's method and trying too hard. Ledger nailed it with, you know, going method. I mean, they said he had the shrine to the Joker. He kept a journal as him. Some think it kind of led to certain aspects that caused his death, like he got too into the character. And, you know, that did happen with Leto when he was sending people in gifts, even just cosplaying as the Joker. There's something about the character. It's almost like Freddy and Wes Craven's New Nightmare, when they describe Freddy as this ancient, almost intangible entity who's captured in storytelling. It's almost like that's what the Joker is. If there's like some, you know, they talked about like some god of laughter or something in Jeff Johns' Justice League Dark Side War. It's almost like as if there's like this real life intangible that like consumes you when you take on the character, and I get it. And it's like because when you're as that character, even as a cosplayer, it brings out aspects of yourself that you wouldn't otherwise have there. It's, for me, when I'm the Joker, I'm just an amped up version of myself. And like, hell, even I felt like a better Joker than Leto. It's just, one, I didn't like the look. I like to give everything a chance when I see it live action. Like, I even like defended some of the aesthetic choices they went with Leto before the movie. But when I ultimately saw it, it's like, I don't think the Joker would wear, gold chains. I don't see him as, more pimp. Like, yeah, he has to make money somehow. So of course he's involved in organized crime. The Brian Azzarello, Leo Bermejo Joker graphic novel really got that point across, and I think they used that as an influence on the movie. I mean, they even had the Johnny Frost character there as his right-hand man. But it's just that his performance was a bit Ace Ventura-like, and I wasn't too much a fan of that. But it's also the tattoos. Yeah, it's believable he would have some. I mean, he's had tattoos like an all-star Batman and Robin when he had the big dragon tattoo on his back, like he was in the Yakuza. I think they might have even had that in this movie, even though you didn't really get to see him from behind. But it on the bonus features, they were like, we could have gone with a more classic suit, but it would have covered up the tattoos. And I'm thinking, how about you get rid of the tattoos and just go for the classic suit? I mean, granted,
I don't see why why the two are mutually exclusive. That's the thing. Like when he was in the tuxedo at the end, I thought it was a cool look. I mean, it was classic Joker look. The only thing that you could really tell was obviously the grill and the and a couple of the small face tattoos. But speaking of the grill, I didn't get to mention when Chris mentioned the grill. I think the grill was actually one of those touches where it wasn't like, it said Joker or something like that across his grill. It looked like his teeth were shittily replaced after Batman knocked them out of his head. And I'm assuming that was the touch that they were attempting to go for. I would have liked if they would have actually just stated it like, you see what you see what I've had to do with my beautiful smile or something like that. You get the idea that there's some vanity there.
Yeah, just a little something to acknowledge. But I mean, because again, it's not a knock on the movie. It's just, okay, if you looked at the quick way that they edited some people's origins together, that could have just been a flashback, like a real quick, like, look,
right.
You see, for example, first time you see the Joker walk in or something, he flashes the smile with the grill. Show the grill up close, get in on it, show Batman knocking his teeth out for like a half a second. And then
Absolutely.
That's all you need to do. You don't have to go into the story, and again, it's like I said, I like the movie. I'm not knocking the movie at all. Narratively, I mean, I thought it was a cool movie. It's just, it had certain steps that it took that were just like, really? But, and then again, it's just, I think because I've grown up with, I wasn't alive during Cesar Romero's initial run, but obviously I've seen it in reruns. Obviously we all have seen Nicholson, we've all seen Ledger, and we've all grew up watching animated series. So I mean, it's like there's certain things about the Joker that is just like they're ingrained in us now. I mean, I think that's the only real way to say it. And I think Leto just jarred me enough to be like, that feels way off, but maybe it's supposed to.
There's definitely some things where you talk about in like an embarrassment of riches. And when you've got the animated Joker, the animated series Joker, they nailed every single thing about that character. He was like basically the best amalgamation of the Joker that we've gotten. Obviously, because it was a legitimate kids show, even though it was a little bit more adult themed and gritty for a kids show, we had, aside from the extraordinary violence that we sometimes get from the Joker, we had the best amalgamation of the Joker, the best voice actor you could possibly have for the Joker. Right. So we've definitely been embarrassed by one of the best versions of that character that exists. It's one of the reasons that even though I love Henry Cavill, people look at like Christopher Reeve in Superman 1 and Superman 2, and it's just like, God, that guy looks like Superman. It's like, he is Superman. He's the absolutely all-American guy. He's the absolutely, humble, humility-ridden, yet powerful regality of Superman that people come to expect. The friendly smile, all of those elements. So it makes it hard to see somebody else fill those shoes. I think that some of that coming off when you're coming off the heels of an Oscar-winning performance, that can't be understated by the previous actor who did the Joker. There's definitely going to be some negative connotations that goes along with that. But okay, so me and Chris, we went on a little bit at length, more than we expected to, about our favorites. So Eric, finally, tell us, what was your favorite 3 films of 2016 comic book movie films?
Okay, I have more of I do have a strict ranked top 3. The order might surprise some people, might not surprise others. Came with rewatching some of these movies because if you asked me like 5, 6 months ago, they might not have been in this order. But number 1 is Captain America: Civil War. I just thought it was clear cut the best superhero movie of 2016. It pretty much did everything right when it came to the characters themselves. The only real misstep I thought the movie had was not having as strong of a villain. I believe I've said before on the show that Zemo more so just felt like a plot device to get the heroes to fight each other. But I mean, that having Team Cap and Team Iron Man go head to head was essentially the draw of the movie. It is called Civil War, but their motivations were well done. They gave Tony Stark a little more of a dramatic side than we've seen in a bit because he was, really more so overly comedic. Even though he had the PTSD in Iron Man 3, that was more of, a comedic romp. And Avengers Age of Ultron, well, that's a discussion for another day. But it was just, a great quintessential superhero movie, even though the superheroes are fighting. I mean, there was no like evil superhero, but everyone was standing up for what they believed was right. And it was the choreography, the stunts were just off the charts. I mean, there was the airport scene, but also, the little touches like Bucky with the motorcycle during the car chase. It was almost like stuff that was Matrix level cool. Um, and it also, this was almost the movie equivalent of a backdoor pilot. It's a term they use in television for springboarding another series. But I mean, the introduction of Black Panther, a character a lot of mainstream moviegoers probably won't be familiar with, but you see it and you get the sense that yes, I will pay a ticket to see Black Panther, and the fact that his movie is going to be February of 2018 gives him the breathing room to where he's not going to be overshadowed by Justice League or Infinity War, and it says yes, Black Panther has that room to be a success, and hopefully it works for him. It seems like they've got a strong cast. They've got um, an acclaimed director. So not to get too sidetracked on Black Panther, but they did shoehorn in Spider-Man because that was like really, as soon as that deal went down with Sony and Disney, they're like, yeah, Spider-Man's in this movie. But I have a lot of confidence with Infinity War because as much as I like the first Avengers movie and Age of Ultron, okay, not a bad movie, but not the best. I think the Russo brothers are going to do it so much better than Joss Whedon ever could. And, this movie was essentially Avengers 2.5. And, I'm more of a DC guy, but I like both publishers. And, to me, Marvel was the clear winner here as far as, best movies go this year. Kind of also at a loss for words and not trying to rehash anything I said in our review episode as much. But number 2 for me would be Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, specifically the Ultimate Edition. Filled in more of those plot gaps. Still wasn't perfect, and even as an Ultimate Edition, in a way, it almost changed the movie up in a certain sense because instead of getting the fight between Batman versus Superman, at like the 120-minute mark, you get it at the 2 hour mark. So it creates the sense that the movie is a bit more actionless. And I think that's kind of Batman versus Superman, why some people didn't cater to it as much, is because it wasn't really what you expected from a superhero movie. It was more straight faced, serious, real world thriller. And yes, the movie did need more action. And Zack Snyder took it for granted that you were a comic book fan and didn't explain things to you as much as other movies do. And he should have done that. But why this movie wins over Suicide Squad for me is because it has that CNC again quality, and it just has those memorable moments that you're always going to look back on. It's the first time Batman and Superman meet live action. It's the first time the Trinity gets together. You get Doomsday, although he didn't, look as accurate. I mean, Doomsday looked better on Smallville. Even though it was prosthetics and not CGI, that Doomsday was more Doomsday to me. But and then of course, we had the miscasting of Lex Luthor, but it was just like I said, it's quintessentially your iconic film, and it just had all those little moments that make you look forward to Ben Affleck's solo film. Like, I mean, how cool was it when you saw like the water pull back on the stream and the Batmobile drives down into the cave, and it's just like everything about Ben Affleck's Batman seems like the comic book Batman brought to life. And this had easily the best Batman fight scene ever in a movie with the warehouse. I mean, it was just ripped right out of an Arkham game. And although a lot of people saw the movie as a misstep, it does get me excited about the DC extended universe as it grows. And then, but oh yeah, I just wanted to throw in a comment about the fight scene that I didn't get to say when you two were talking about it. It was Superman did have his spots, but overall, yes, Batman was the clear-cut winner, and it almost felt like what in pro wrestling you call a squash, because it literally ended with Batman getting the 1 foot pin. All he needed to do was, flex his muscles like Chris Jericho and shout, "Come on, baby."
Exactly.
But yeah, usually, Stan Lee has once said that you always have the fight as a draw, and then the fans debate who won, and that certainly happened. I mean, technically, Batman was the victor in The Dark Knight Returns, but he gave himself a heart attack. He kicked Superman's ass, but even some could argue that fight was a draw. But yeah, this was a clear-cut winner because Batman is Warner Brothers' golden boy. He hijacked the Man of Steel sequel and got top billing. There's no arguing that, and the Ultimate Cut did balance it out with the characters having screen time, and you saw more of Clark Kent as motivations. But the theatrical cut did seem like Batman guest starring Superman in a way. But moving on to Suicide Squad, which is my number 3 on the list. It was a good movie. It had its shortcomings, like it could have had a better villain, maybe a comic book villain. Maybe the Joker could have been the villain. I mean, not trying to rehash the Assault on Arkham animated movie, which was a better Suicide Squad movie. I'm just not sure the movie. I mean, I'm of course going to watch it here and there in the future, but I'm not sure it's going to have CNC again quality that, like, say, a Civil War or a Batman versus Superman has. I mean, Margot Robbie, I think, was easily the best thing about the film. Looks like, Gotham City Sirens is going to get here before Suicide Squad 2, because I'm looking forward to that more so. And David Ayer is going to direct it. All I ask of David Ayer is don't give Catwoman and Poison Ivy grills. Just don't do it. But yeah, it's a lot of people complained about Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, but it seemed like more so people liked her. I mean, she was easily the most cosplayed character this year. As divisive as Suicide Squad was amongst fans, the movie made what's 750 million, roughly, something around that. So that's a success, because although it had, characters like the Joker, expectations aren't as high as Batman versus Superman. And just the merchandising success of this, yeah, it it was a win for WB overall. And I think it is kind of better to spin these characters into their own movies. I mean, they're talking Deadshot spinoff, and there's no way Deadshot would ever get a movie if it weren't Will Smith playing him. And we always say Will Smith is going to play Will Smith, but you still, there were things you otherwise thought Floyd Lawton wouldn't have said in the comics or on Arrow, but you believed him as Deadshot. You believed his motivation. So again, I thought that was a successful portrayal of the character. But yeah, there were just a few more thoughts I wanted to get on the Joker, and I do think it was a big misstep. I really wish they could recast. I wish they could do a redesign. And it's like, as much as they've done right with characters like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn, Deadshot in this new movie universe, we've seen very little of Aquaman, but let's be honest, Jason Momoa is going to change the minds of the mainstream and show that Aquaman's the badass he deserves to be. I mean, it's early to say, but hey, they got Aquaman right in this. But when it comes to like Lex Luthor and the Joker, you've already screwed up two of your biggest villains. So don't cast Jay Leno as Darkseid or something like that. It's like I have to use the terminology. These are the guys we're stuck with. Like, I'm actually hoping the Joker is not in the Batman. We know Deathstroke's in there, but Deathstroke is a hired gun. Someone has to be paying him. And considering that Batman Earth 1 is going to be an influence on the movie, I'm hoping that it's the Penguin, because Penguin was the mayor in the Earth 1, well, the first volume until he was killed, spoiler. But yeah, I'm hoping it's the Penguin who's pulling the strings and, is paying Deathstroke, who will be the physical foil for Batman. I mean, there might be some.
You know who I would like to see them put in there instead of Penguin, because we've already seen Penguin live action. I honestly wouldn't mind like Black Mask being used, or somebody else, one of the other crime, boss type villains.
Yeah, I like the idea. I mean, it kind of, since they went supernatural with, which I didn't necessarily mind the supernatural elements. It's just, why do you need a bunch of basically people without superpowers to fight a supernatural villain? And that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But you're gonna tell me that a gigantic military force couldn't have just went in there and done the exact same thing as 5 people? But
oh no, I'm saying in regards to what Eric's talking about with the Batman, like have Black Mask hire Deathstroke. Something like that. I think that, because we've never seen Black Mask live action, and I've always thought the character was actually very cool. But,
yeah, I think the gritty realism is kind of one of the ways they need to go in terms of like, if you have a believable crime boss villain, I think it's going to make a little bit more sense. I do feel a little upset that we've never, although the Penguin's kind of been close-ish. And especially in Gotham, we're getting the Penguin as he's kind of supposed to be.
Oh, yeah.
We never got the Riddler that way. He's one of the biggest Batman villains of all time. We've unfortunately never even gotten Bane the way he's supposed to be.
That's true.
Yeah,
but that character's never going to be done again.
Bane's kind of been split up. You got him how he looks in the comics in Batman and Robin, but The Dark Knight Rises more so nailed the character of Bane. I think just people were thrown off because he didn't have the Venom. But not to get sidetracked on Gotham, but Gotham has given us more so the purest version of the Penguin as we know him in the comics, as that mob boss. I mean, granted the character was different. Burgess Meredith certainly did a good portrayal of him years ago, but Danny DeVito gave a good performance, but it wasn't that comic book version. And although he's not the Riddler yet, Corey Michael Smith on Gotham, I think, is more what we expect of the Riddler and would like to eventually see in a movie. I mean, still my favorite live action Riddler is Frank Gorshin, but you know that could eventually change one day. But it's like, again, with the Joker, Cameron Monaghan on Gotham is just a proto version of him, and he's coming back. You know, this Monday on Gotham, coming up. We're recording this on January 14th. But he more so was one of the best live action Jokers I've seen, and it's you know, Leto didn't beat out, you know, some. I think Monahan's like 21 or something, and I think he just. And that's another thing. Monahan will still like tweet as the Joker. It's like that. Like I said, how the character consumes you, and like a point I wanted to make. It's like a lot of girls saw this movie, and you know they didn't do the Harley Joker relationship how quite they should have. They made it more lovey dovey. I mean, in the extended cut, they show the Joker being annoyed with her, but they still they filmed the Joker being abusive, but they ultimately left it out of the extended cut. And you know, a lot of people more so fell in love with the Joker more than like there were so many girls like saying, "Oh, he's hot," you know, he's the bad boy, and you know, like, not to toot my own horn, but
And he'll murder your entire family.
when I was the Joker, some people were actually afraid of me. You know, when I cosplayed as him, I made a Batman cosplayer uncomfortable just from the presence.
Well, you make everyone uncomfortable, you know, cosplay or not, Eric.
That actually is true. Some people like I don't know. It's just a look about me. Yeah, some people just, you know, think I'm a like one time I was out at a club, and there was a girl lightly, you know, jokingly punching people. She turned to me and she's like, "I'm not gonna punch you. You're kind of a scary guy." And that's, you know, not to say, you know, I frighten women or anything, but I don't know. I guess.
All right, so club scene aside, I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, we got to get into 2017.
Yeah, so let's do a brief one because we're running up on the hour. I don't want to necessarily go over the hour, and I don't want to take up any more of our beloved guest's time than is necessary. So, Chris, actually, I'm going to have you go because it's been a little bit since you've chatted. Upcoming movies 2017, what is the biggest one that you're looking forward to, or you know, maybe what are the top three that you're looking forward to in 2017?
I'll run it down real quick. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I was never a fan of the original books. The movie that they put out 2 years ago was amazing. Caught me off guard. Did not expect to, you know, really enjoy that film as much as I did. So I'm looking forward, you know, to more of the second one, to see what they do. Spider-Man Homecoming. I am definitely excited to see what a Spider-Man under Marvel's control in the sense of story and, you know, actual production. What they can do with that, and looking forward to Justice League. I have to see what they can do with it. Snyder, I hope, has taken some notes with, you know, obviously the film is probably done or, you know, within the post-production phase, but I hope Snyder has taken some notes to what other films have done right, and maybe to even look back at his own stuff to see what he's done wrong to, you know, get this one going. Because I mean, again, it's characters that we all grew up with. This is the Super Friends, but not quite the Super Friends. It's, you know, it's supposed to be Justice League. It's going to be awesome. So I would like to really see that film do well. You know, regardless of any of the people saying that I don't like DC, it's like, yes, I do. Just like Eric has said, I like both publishers. It's just I want them. I don't know. I just hold both of them to a very high standard. I think that's probably the easiest way for me to say it. And I hope Justice League can, you know, live up to that standard.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling that way. Eric, what's your most looked forward to comic book movie of 2017?
Yeah, number one, how could it not be Justice League? I mean, it's the first Justice League movie. I'm so excited to, you know, see Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Cyborg, Aquaman all interacting with each other. Let's just hope that it's successful enough for a sequel, well received, because again, wasting possibly the only bullet you have in the chamber on Steppenwolf as opposed to Darkseid. If we never get Darkseid, I am going to be so pissed. But yeah, Zack Snyder, is at the helm, and certainly a stylish filmmaker. But what's going to be the factor, even for those who didn't like Batman versus Superman Suicide Squad going forward, this year we get the Jeff Johns factor. He's not just a producer on the movies, he's overseeing the DC movies now and even helping out with the scripts. Like, he co-wrote Wonder Woman. He and Ben Affleck were said to have done some rewrites on Justice League. He's co-writing the Batman with Ben Affleck. So hopefully this really is a positive turnaround. And I mean, although it wouldn't be as good, you could probably get Uwe Boll to direct Justice League, and I would still be very excited about it. But
let's be crazy now.
It's very hard not to screw up Justice League. Or to screw up Justice League. I mean, look at how one of the best Smallville episodes ever was Justice. And they told, within a budget, told a competent Justice League story in 42 minutes. It can be done. And then, of course, my number 2 is Wonder Woman. I think the trailers look great. Granted, trailers can be cut to suit any image. I mean, I ultimately thought Suicide Squad was more befitting of that somber trailer from San Diego Comic-Con 2015, as opposed to the Ballroom Blitz and Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, you could cut an episode of Law and Order, and I'm not even talking SVU. I'm talking Law and Order. You could cut a trailer for that with Ballroom Blitz and make it look like the most exciting thing ever. I mean, Suicide Squad had some great action scenes, but I think overall the tone of the film was more, like I said, the Comic-Con 2015 trailer. No matter how many pop songs you put in every 5 seconds, which, got annoying. But yeah, the vibe I get from the Wonder Woman trailers and the talk from behind it, I really don't see this getting screwed up. I think this might, so far, Man of Steel is my favorite DC film of, this shared universe. But Wonder Woman, I think, has that potential to be, and not just because of the time period, I'm talking, it has that potential to be DC's Captain America, or in terms of quality, DC's Iron Man 1. I really kind of get that vibe from it, if you know what I mean. And then number 3, this narrowly beats out the others, but I have to hand it to Spider-Man Homecoming, because, I mean, we've gotten several Spider-Man movies already, but it's Spider-Man's debut in the MCU, and how can you not miss that? And Tony Stark's there also to help boost ticket sales, but also to connect them to that larger universe. So there's really that factor. I mean, Tom Holland has that real comic book accurate quality of Spider-Man personality wise, so it's going to be interesting to see that. I think the movie has a lot going for it, and we get Michael Keaton as the villain, which should be pretty interesting. But I want to give an honorable mention to a movie I'm going to see at some point, but I really am not looking forward to, is the Lego Batman movie. And that's just, I know how many people, like to say how everything is awesome, but I'm very accepting of pretty much every incarnation of Batman there's ever been. And not a lot of people can say that, because a lot of people hate Adam West. But Adam West, for his time and what the comic books are, was great. And that 60s Batman show will always be a classic. I love The Brave and the Bold. It was a tongue-in-cheek show, but if you watch it, Batman himself is dark. And I think there's a huge tone gap between the direct-to-DVD Lego Batman movies, which still aren't for me. The Batman who's voiced by Troy Baker, as he is in the games. Because even though that world is still kind of kiddie and fun and, Lego, Batman himself is dark, but it's also a tongue-in-cheek look at that dark Batman. I think the Batman we see in the on-screen Lego movies is a farce and parody and more so a disgrace to the legacy. I don't care what anybody says, Batman doesn't beatbox. And especially the way they in this upcoming movie, it seems like what someone who doesn't watch anything having to do with Batman thinks Robin is, or what someone in a boardroom thinks Robin is, or maybe if your only exposure is the Burt Ward character, because it's anyone who's remotely familiar with Robin, be it Dick Grayson, Tim Drake, especially Damian Wayne, knows anyone who puts on the Robin costume is an undeniable badass. And, they've got him sparkly. It seems like this is a Robin that, a zombie Frederick Wortham is going to get out of his grave and said, I told you, that's what Robin is. It's all the jokes like, Family Guy makes. It's all the jokes about his sexuality people make about Robin who don't know anything about the character. It's like a jab at the legacy of Robin, the character, and I don't see them. It's more of like it seems like it's Batman in name only. But anyway, Josh, 2017, what's on your list?
All right. First and foremost, everything is awesome, Eric. Everything is awesome. But no, I actually don't mind the Lego Batman movies or any of the Lego movies. They are what they are. They're fun, childish parody, and that's pretty much it. Obviously, you've never seen a whole lot of Robot Chicken's take on the DC comic book characters and several other comic book characters. It's just fun, irreverent humor is all it is. I don't necessarily see it as the horrible disgrace. That being said, I am not necessarily looking forward to that movie as much as I like Will Forte's Batman voice, because that guy's got a great gravelly voice. But in no particular order, I am looking forward to Wonder Woman, Justice League, and I would say that Spider-Man Homecoming also probably ekes out Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It's probably actually a pretty decent even tie between those two. I'm equally looking forward to this. I actually did enjoy the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Pretty much what Chris said is spot on in terms of my take on the original Guardians of the Galaxy. Didn't really have a whole lot of expectations. Didn't really care about the comic book characters. Didn't know what to expect going in. It was a fun, irreverent, humorous, action space film, space buddies, fighting bad guys. I thought it was a fun movie. And the second one looks like it'll be a little fun. I think people have gone a little bit crazy about Baby Groot. Yes, he was a cute little thing. Now he's an actual active character, and I think it's a little bit ridiculous. But the movie does look like it'll probably be a fun, enjoyable movie. I tend to care for my superhero films to be a little bit more of a serious tone. Me and Eric actually had a long conversation the other day about the idea of, comic book films. Basically, everyone's like, oh, it's got the word comic in it. It's got to be funny. I was like, yeah, remember that humorous tome, The Dark Knight Returns? Remember that humorous book, Batman the Killing Joke, where the Joker shot Barbara Gordon and then probably raped her in front of her father while he was in a gimp suit. Remember that comically toned comic book? Yeah, everyone was laughing hard at that one. So I don't necessarily think my comic books need to be humorous, but I also am not completely averse to the humor that naturally comes with the juxtaposition of an extremely serious tone. So I would say that would lead me into maybe say Spider-Man Homecoming. I like the fact that Tom Holland's Spider-Man is quirky and funny. He's young. I like the fact that he's the youngest person who's played Spider-Man, and he's going to have more of that young innocence of an early Spider-Man. It kind of reminds me of early Spider-Man, the animated series, before he's like, in the college years, later in the episodes, he's just getting his powers and he's still in high school and things like that. I know that it's been done before, but I feel like they never really put the emphasis on the idea of him being that young, him having to deal with, the more modern take on high school problems of a kid who then also happens to have a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. Justice League, for every reason that these guys talked about, it's the crew finally getting together for a Justice League movie. They are going to have to try pretty hard to not screw it up, but they're also going to have to try pretty hard to completely screw it up. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a runaway smash. Wonder Woman is actually one of my more looked forward to because it's going to be coming before Justice League, so we're going to get a little bit more of the Wonder Woman character. I've stated several times on this podcast that Captain America: The First Avenger is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. It's in fact one of my favorite movies. I love the wholesome and the wholesomeness of the Captain America character, like I stated before. I like the nostalgic take. I like that it has that old school American sensibilities of forthrightness and justice, and those are the things that made me fall in love with the Captain America character. And I feel like Wonder Woman's going to kind of be the female version of that, and I hope that I'm right. And it looks like there's probably going to be some comparisons made to Captain America: The First Avenger. Hopefully, Wonder Woman doesn't have a musical number, but I actually think that the musical number in Captain America is pretty humorous. But I think that it's going to show the badassness of Wonder Woman. I don't know if we're going to see anything more badass than she was when she was fighting Doomsday. I mean, she was going toe-to-toe with Doomsday, who was knocking Superman into space, smiling during the thing, cutting off limbs. I don't even think she got hurt. I mean, she was in the fray. They talked about how she's fought gods before. I don't know if we're going to see that in this film. It seems as though Ares is potentially rumored to be.
Ares, I think, was confirmed this week.
Did they confirm it? Okay, I didn't know if it was a confirmation or a rumor. But that being said, I mean, is she going to potentially fight a god of war, a legitimate god? I mean, that's a really interesting take. So I'm hoping that that's going to be the case. But Wonder Woman looks great. I actually love Chris Pine as well. He has really impressed me as an actor, not just from the Star Trek movies, but recently, Hell or High Water. He just really poured his heart into that movie and really impressed me with his acting. So I like the fact that we're going to see him as Steve Trevor. In the trailers look great, but again, yes, you can cut anything into a trailer that looks spectacular, and we could give you several examples of that. But all right, we have talked our heads off, and I think it's time to wrap it up. So, GQ, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Any final words?
Oh, definitely want to thank you guys for having me. It's definitely been a pleasure. Want to encourage your listeners to check out Culture Junkies Live on Tuesdays, and we're going to be bringing back League of Extraordinary Fangirls, which is a female led show on Wednesday nights. There's going to be some more information about that, so culturejunkies.net has the information that you need. We recently redesigned the website, but I'm going to take you up on that challenge. Bohemian Rhapsody with I don't know, like maybe Indiana Jones, Temple of the Crystal Skull, or Kingdom, or whatever it was called, or something like that. Try to make one of those movies look amazing. I think I might do that. Maybe Manos Hands of Fate needs a cut trailer.
I don't know. I think it does have to be something mundane, like or not mundane, but just not something. Cut like a new trailer for Father of the Bride or something.
That would be funny.
Or make a completely dour movie, like make Schindler's List into an action comedy or something.
That might not go over well.
Yeah, I'm not going that far. I mean, I have an irreverent sense of humor, but that might be a little bit beyond even me. I could probably take. I'm not gonna lie. I took one of the Bond movies I hated the most, which is On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and recut it using the.
You just made an enemy out of Eric.
I'm sorry. Telly Savalas as Blofeld. I'm sorry, dude. I can't accept that. But I actually took that trailer and recut it using the audio from was it Skyfall? It was one of the Daniel Craig films that I used his audio. I mean, it was Skyfall. So I don't know. But yes, I understand. No, it wasn't. It was the other one. Anyway, it was one of the newer Bond movies and replaced it and used that as a setup. But Eric, we'll have to talk about that later on, because there's just reasons I don't like that film. I understand from a book standpoint, it's an amazing story, but Telly Savalas is very hard to look past.
I was going to say, how about Castaway with Ballroom Blitz?
There you go. Now that could be funny. That could be funny.
Dun, dun, dun. I can hear it in the back of my head already playing. All right, so that's gonna wrap it up. Eric, why don't you wrap it up? Give everybody the links. Tell us where they can find us, where they can check us out, and get us out of here.
All right, yeah, you could call it Volleyball Room Blitz. Yeah, hopefully we'll be back sometime in the near future for a season 4 premiere. I'm thinking of getting another guy from the Culture Junkies crew who hasn't done the show yet, so I'll be getting in touch with him pretty soon. So I know the show's almost unofficially turned into a monthly, but my schedule has been pretty packed lately, so we do it when we can. So time to plug those links as usual. For all the latest Batman news across all forms of media, check out darkknightnews.com. For all the latest DC news across all forms of media, check out dccomicsnews.com. For our backlog of podcasts and other miscellanea, check out our blog site at multiverseentertainment.wordpress.com. And again, check out all we're doing over at wegotThisCovered.com for all your entertainment needs. And as Chris said, check out culturejunkies.net. We tend to plug them a lot, but yeah, they've done an overhaul of the website. They're updating news again regularly. It looks pretty cool. So do give it a look, and then be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/a podcast for all seasons. So until next time, thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Yeah, guys, thanks for listening. And again, we thank Chris for being here. Check out all the sites, and we'll be back shortly. Have a good night, guys.
Everyone have a good one. Thanks for having me.